Hi Stampers, welcome to Debbie's Designs. This is Debbie Henderson and I'm going to show you how to complete the Retiform technique today. As you can see on my card, I have 4 different areas that I stamped on, and that's what the Retiform technique is. Retiform means networking, so we're actually networking 4 different stamped images onto our card today. So let's get started with a list of the supplies you will need today. As you can see, I have 3 little sequins sitting here. Those are from the Brights sequin assortment. So you'll need 3 of those. Mini glue dots. For ink colors, Early Espresso, Old Olive, Tip Top Taupe, Hello Honey, Rich Raspberry, and Pumpkin Pie. For cardstocks, we're only going to need 2 layers. Early Espresso, 5.5 by 8.5 inches, scored in the center at 4 1/4, and Whisper White, 5 1/4 inches by 4 inches. And for stamp sets, we're using Vintage Leaves. This is a beautiful stamp set. Not only am I a big fan of butterflies, but anything with leaves on it usually draws me right in also. Trust God, and we're going to use the God is Love on our card today. And finally, Butterfly Basics, and the only stamp image that I'm using from this is the long border stamp image that you see here. We're also going to need a sponge for adding our sponging to our card. And I know a lot of you are going to ask how I do this. I did explain it on another video. What I do is I use one of our stamping sponges and I cut it in half to get 4 pieces. And then I use my decorative label punch and punch out 1, score it in half, and then I just fold it over and staple it to my color. That way I don't need to clean my sponges each time I use them, and I have one for each color, and I actually store them in a clear case, and I store them by color. Like this one has all my neutrals in it. You're also going to need a scrap piece of white cardstock or whatever you have laying around, and 3 post-it notes, and I'll show you how to use that. So let's get started. I do advise you to keep a wipe close at hand because you are going to get a little dirty doing this technique because there's punching involved. And I'm going to do this card in an opposite angle direction. I went vertically this way or horizontally this way. So I'm going to place it in the opposite direction this time. And you're going to ink your sponge. And I always start on my scrap paper and work my way up to the line that I'm going to be creating. And I usually go in a circular motion. So there's my first line. And now I'm going to position my second line and do the same thing. And make sure you hold on to your scrap piece of paper tightly with your fingers as you're doing this. Okay, so that's our 2 lines. Now I'm going to turn my paper in the reverse direction and place my scrap right over the line I just created, just to add a little bit of color to my white space. And I'm just going very lightly on this one. And I'm going to add color to the very top also. Okay, so there's our first 2 horizontal lines. Now we need to create 1 vertical line. So that's where I'm going to bring in my post-it notes and place them below my bottom line. And then I'm going to position my paper cardstock piece vertically this time, about in the center, but it doesn't have to be. It's up to you where you want to place that vertical line. And again, just add color. And we're also going to flip it over and do the other side of that same line. And that's all there is to it. And if you have distinctive lines showing, just add a little bit more color to blend them into your background. And you see how that looks. Now let's remove one of the post-it notes. Actually, I should have left it there because there's a little piece still remaining. And we're going to add that right on the line. What you're doing is actually surrounding one of the squares you just created. So there's your first square. And we're going to start out with the rich raspberry color. So I'm going to bring that ink pad in. And I'm using this leaf image for my first square. And by the way, you can use any stamp set to do this technique. And we're just going to fill in our square with the leaves. We'll squeeze one more. So there's 3 leaves. And now we're going to move on to the next square. So we're going to put our post-it notes around our square. And the next color we're going to bring in is the Hello Honey. And again, we're just going to stamp various leaves. And I'll add one more. So that's 2 squares completed. Move on to our third square. And this time we'll use the pumpkin pie. And I'm going to use the larger stamp. And finally, our last square. And that one is going to be with the old olive ink. And we're using this leaf image. I don't know what my leaves are. I think that's an oak, but I'm not sure. And I've completely filled my 4 squares with my ink color. Now, if you'll notice closely, I told you to keep a white handy. The reason you need a wipe handy is because of this little ink spot I just created. I didn't wipe my fingers in between my stamp colors. But as I always tell my customers, there's always a way to fix a boo-boo. So I'm going to show you how to fix that. We're going to bring in our early espresso ink and this border. And I want to show you the easiest way to get this on your clear block. If you peel it off and get ready to put it on, sometimes it's a little difficult to get it on there so it's not wavy. So what I do is I just drop it on my counter upside down and then I press it into place and it's straight. So now we're going to use this. On this card I used it as a border right below my leaf, so we're going to do the same thing. So there's one. And to cover that boo-boo, I'm going to stamp it again on the bottom right where that little ink spot is showing. So there, ink spot is now gone. And we are now going to bring in our sentiment. God is love. That's going to go right here. And we're going to bring in our early espresso layer, fold it in half, bring in our snail, and I knew this was going to run out, so I have one already. This just snaps out, and then we just bring a new one in and snap it in place. And I decided on this card at the last minute to use the Tip Top Taupe ink for the sentiment instead of the early espresso, just to give you an idea what the different inks look like. All we have left to do now is to add our sequins, and I've got 3 of them here. And what I normally do is use the glue dots. I press them into the glue dot, remove them with my paper piercer, and then we just set them in place. And there you have it, 2 completed cards, both going in different directions. I hope you like this technique and give it a try. It's a lot of fun, and as I said, you can use any stamp set to complete this technique. I've even seen some cards where people use script in one of the squares, and that looks pretty cool also. If you have any questions, make sure you leave a message on my YouTube video, or you can always email me. I have the address, my email address, and my online store at the end of my video. Thanks for stopping by.